because I'd been through the Pentagon right after 9/11. About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who had used to work for me, and one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
You know, a lot of people have been accusing me of different things, of being, supporting a murderer and all of the different things, and alleging that I've been paid by all these different people, all the things under the sun. Now, there's people sharing, a lot of people sharing photos that are actually from the Gaza Strip in the bombardment, from the bombardments in 2014 and before that, and using this as evidence of Assad bombing his own people. Now, I saw one of these photos, which is on a page which is liked by millions and millions of people, and has 152,000 shares on it. And it's a photo from the Gaza Strip. It's not a photo from Syria. And these people are parading this around as if it's some sort of smoking gun evidence of Assad killing his own people, and it's not. It's not. Like, people go on and they talk about Bashar al-Assad is killing his own people in eastern Ghouta. Okay, so in an area, right, and the Russians are helping in this operation, in an area that is roughly 30 square kilometers. It's not a big area, it's not huge. They could flatten the entire area if they wanted to. In a matter of days, they could go through and they could flatten everything. They could kill every single person there if they wanted to. They could obliterate the entire place and wipe it off the map if they wanted to. They have the firepower to do it. They have Russia on their side. Now, I'm going to show you this. This has been posted. All right, this here, just so people know I'm not lying, this is from Gaza. This is Gaza. This is not Syria. And they're saying that this isn't Syria. And this is a page that has a lot of likes. Look at this. Over 400 people have been killed in Syria in the past days, right? This is from Gaza, right? It's not from Eastern Ghouta. Look how many shares this thing has. 152,000 shares, 76,000 likes, and it's not true. It's just not true. You know, I wouldn't have to address this if it was just a few people sharing this, but these are big pages, these are big activists who are sharing photos from Gaza. And you know what makes me more aggravated? It's the fact that nobody's talking about Gaza right now. Gaza has just declared a state of emergency. Its services are collapsing. You know, horrible things are happening in the Gaza Strip at the moment, but nobody's talking about it. The media's not talking about it. Nobody's addressing it. Instead, people are talking about Eastern Ghouta, and I've seen demonstrations that happened today. I'm in Calgary at the moment. I saw a demonstration. No demonstration for Gaza. No condemnation in the United Nations of Israel for what it's doing to the Gaza Strip. But instead, it's let's share a whole bunch of photos that aren't even from Syria, which are from a different country, to prove a point about Bashar al-Assad is killing his own people. Yeah, he's killing his own people, is he? Why is he not bombing his people in his own government parts? Like, this is just a basic question. If he wanted to kill his own people, he would do it. It's very easy. He has a lot of people on the government side. Why doesn't he kill his own people? Oh, that's right. Because he's not just killing his own people just because he's a murdering psychopath like people are making him out to be. I'm not saying that the Syrian government doesn't have problems. Every government on earth has problems. Every government on the face of this planet has domestic policies which are absolutely atrocious, and they have mistreated their people. They have done things in the past which have screwed people over. But I think everyone would agree with me on this.
Well, there's been plenty of support for the Syrian citizens living in eastern Ghouta via social media. Journalists and commentators sharing photos from the conflict zone. However, not all of them appear to show the actual real picture. Azati's Caleb Moppin now reports.
2 heartbreaking photos posted with the words, "This is Syria." Except it's not actually Syria. One is from Mosul in Iraq, and the other is from the Israeli bombing of Gaza. Now, it's been raised in the comments that it's not actually Syria, but regardless, this post by some guy in Cleveland has tens of thousands of retweets.
Believe in what? That Assad is an evil man?
Yes.
An evil guy? You've got to ask the other leaders who have communicated with Assad. He was more often in Europe after being elected than in Russia. It is not President Assad whom we are protecting there. We are protecting the Syrian statehood. We don't want there in Syria to be a situation similar to that in Libya or in Somalia or in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, NATO has been present for many years, but the situation is not changing for the better. We want to preserve the Syrian statehood.
Listen to what he says here.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran.
He just said that. You aren't hearing things. He literally just said, crisis initiation's tough, and how's the United States president going to get to war with Iran? Because wars don't just happen. They make the war.
Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests.
The traditional way that America gets to war is what's best for the interests. Now, listen to what the traditional way is that America goes to war.
Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor.
False flag.
Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode.
Also a false flag.
Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall he had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode.
Total false flag.
We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded.
Probably also a false flag.
May I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack.
Also a false flag. Do you see a pattern here?
So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.
Period. If the Iranians don't compromise, it would be best if someone started this war. Because that is how America goes to war. You literally have the douchebags who stand up there in these think tanks and say stuff like this. It's not even thinly veiled. There's not even a semantic argument that could be made here that he actually meant something else. He straight up said someone needs to start this war. The way that all of America's other wars have been started. With a false flag.
You know, we're living in a time that is riddled with a lot of confusion. There are lots of questions that we have of all kinds. But on top of that, there are crises in the world. There are many of you who have family, for instance, in Syria and places like Syria all over the world that are on fire, where families aren't safe, children aren't safe, where all kinds of human disaster is happening and people are being killed. It's almost like fulfilling the word of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where the killer will not know why he's killing and the killed will not know why they're being killed. And so in that kind of crisis, some people start not only questioning, why is this happening in my personal life? They start questioning, why is all this crazy stuff happening in the world? And how am I where is Allah in all of this? Can't He just fix these problems? And it's not like we're not making dua. You know, Qunutun Nazila every night in so many masajid around the world. Allahumma ansuril Islam wal Muslimin. You know, A'izz al-Islam wal Muslimin. Aid the Muslims, aid Islam. Give strength to the Muslims, give strength to Islam. Ya Allah, aid us against the enemies of the deen. But it seems like the enemies are just getting better and better at spilling more and more blood. So at that point, somebody gets really frustrated with their religion. And they start thinking there's no point. Why do I even make dua? What's the point of it? Nothing's going to change. And this is actually a very common problem. The point I'm trying to make is oftentimes we think the purpose of dua is to change the reality around us. We focus on changing the reality around us. But if you study the du'as in the Qur'an, and the majority of the du'as in the Sunnah carefully, you'll notice that the change actually you're asking for is a change in yourself. You see what happens to, and this is actually very easy to understand in our times, we live in a hyper-consumer society. So everything comes quickly. You want to be entertained, just open up an app on your phone. You want to buy something, just order it on Amazon, it'll show up at your door. Everything's become effortless, and everything's become instantaneous. You want something, it'll come to you. You don't have to go to it, it'll come to you. Everything's quick, 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 quick. We're used to getting served now. We're used to constantly getting served. And if one order of yours is 2 days late, 3 days late, you're going to give it 1 star, thumbs down, bad rating. You're used to this now. And now you make dua to Allah. Or you expect Allah to take care of some of your problem, but you're so used to getting things done so quickly and immediately. And when it doesn't happen, we're like, this is poor service. I need better customer service. You know, I'm not going to go to Allah again and place an order. Because you're a customer now. You're entitled now. He turns his face from Allah. You know, he didn't even listen to me. He didn't even solve my problem. Understand that Allah Azza wa Jal has a plan for everybody. And just to give you a comparison, in the case of Yaqub alayhi salam, who lost his child, Allah returned his child to him after years. Many, many years. All those years this father cried, yes? This father almost lost his eyesight, and eventually وَبْيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ, Qur'an says, some of the ulama like Alusi rahimahullah comment, you know, amiya, and he became blind from crying. But all this time, where was Yusuf? Yusuf was in a prison. Yusuf is being held in, you know, he was a child servant. When he got older enough, he got thrown into prison. He spent many of his years in jail, so either he served as a servant, or he served as a prisoner inmate in jail. Not a good life. That's not a good life. But at the end of it all, when he interprets a dream of the king, and that dream means that that entire economy is going to collapse in 7 years, and people are going to die of starvation, the only one who knows how to handle that crisis was Yusuf. Had he not been in jail, he would have never helped the king. You understand this? If Yusuf was with his father the whole time, alayhi salam, that never would have happened. But now that Yusuf is there to interpret the dream and says, Inni hafidhun, I am the one who can take care of this responsibility. Make me the treasury secretary. Give me this responsibility. When he does that, and he takes care of it, what happens next? What happens next is thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of parents don't have to cry that their children died of starvation. One father cried for several years. But his tears, Allah made them a way of saving thousands of families from crying. Because if he didn't save that economy, and he didn't save that crop, the entire land would have been in drought, and people would have died of starvation, and war would have happened, all kinds of crises would have happened. Sometimes the difficulty you go through isn't just better for you. Maybe through your difficulty, you will become a sadaqah jariyah for so many others. You don't even know. You don't know. But if you're on the edge, you don't have that kind of trust in Allah. So you turn your back to Allah. انقلب على وجهه. And then Allah says, خَسِرَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. This is what I want to leave you with. When people do that, they have lost this world and the next. What does that mean? This person lost this world and the next.